It's been a fun couple of days. I appreciate you coming on. I know everybody's grinding, and you know, football at your level is nonstop. I know how that goes. So we appreciate your time coming on.
Yeah.
We got a ton of guys on here. You know, everybody's anxious to talk some ball. So we appreciate you and the coaches at Cal for supporting us.
Absolutely. Glad to be here. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, man. How's everything up there at Berkeley?
Everything is good, you know, just like everyone else trying to figure this thing out. You know, it's kind of a moving goalpost. You know, the target is definitely not stationary. So you got to be, you know, you got to stay flexible and be willing to adapt and adjust in these times of uncertainty, and obviously something that we've never seen before. So, you know, we're just staying flexible, waiting to kind of figure out, you know, how we move forward with this. But, you know, everybody's happy and healthy, and we're doing good.
Good.
We're doing well.
Good. Glad to hear it. Well, Coach Ragle, we'll turn the floor over to you and get you going. There's a chat button, Coach,
Okay.
for the coaches, for the audience. They can chat a question, and so you can manage that however you want, Coach. You can as we go along or at the end. Sometimes it might be easier to just do it at the end. So however you want to manage that. All right. I appreciate you,
You
Coach.
got it. I'll just what I'm going to do is I'll take the questions at the end. I'll leave about 10 or so minutes at the end, 10, 12 minutes to answer any questions for everybody, if that works. Can you still hear me, Jim?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay, just want to make sure.
So go ahead and share your screen.
Yeah, I'm just getting into it here.
Perfect.
You see it?
Not yet.
Okay, give me 2 seconds here.
There we go. Got you.
Okay. You see that?
We got you. Yeah, perfect.
Okay, perfect. All right. Let's go. All right, like I said, I'm going to talk about kickoff return and installation. Here's my email for anybody that when we get off wants to make contact with me afterwards. It's right there. So, and again, I'll show it right before we finish again so that they have that. Let's see here. All right. Anytime I get a chance to present or talk any kind of football, there's two clips that always go with me. All right. And so I put into context kind of a little bit about what I'm about, what I believe in, and so that guys really understand where I'm coming from. And if you've heard me speak, you've heard this before, and you know, if you ever listen to me speak again, you'll hear it again. But I really want guys to understand where it is I'm coming from, and truly what I believe are key components to being successful in this profession. You know, and just a little info about Bill Shoemaker in terms of people that don't follow horse racing. Was one of the best horse jockeys of all time, and you can see, you know, some of his stats there: 8,800 wins, you know, 4 Kentucky Derbies, 5 Belmonts, Preakness, all that. And why I put the slide up here is to explain to people that, you know what, this guy was a great horse, you know, jockey. And you can see right there, that was a quote from one of Bill's competitors, that he always got the most out of his horse. You know, in order to be successful, I don't care how good a coach you think you are, it goes back to the thoroughbred versus the donkey. And it's real simple. If we came to the Kentucky Derby and Bill Shoemaker was riding a donkey and I was on a thoroughbred, I'm going to beat him 100 times out of 100. All right, period, point blank. So I say that to, you know, reiterate that, you know, some of the things that we do in clinic presentations and we show, hey, we want to put our best foot forward. The reality is that, man, you got to have great players to do it. Okay. And yeah, we all think we're great coaches, and there's a lot that goes into coaching. I'm definitely not downplaying my profession by any stretch, but we're fooling ourselves if we think that, you know, we're devoid of talent, we can still execute what we're trying to get done. you've got to have the talent, you know, and I tell this to people all the time. You show me a great coach, I'll show you a roster full of great talent. Okay. And it's when those rosters are close one way or another, you find out what you're about from a coaching perspective. So that I want to share that with these guys as I get started. And the second thing is just a little clip here about the dinosaur. And I talk about this all the time, and I just mentioned it earlier, is plain and simple is this, and this is no more of a perfect time for this than any. We're in a situation, you know, obviously with this pandemic, and like I mentioned, the times are changing in front of us. You know, my dad, when I was 11 years old, sat me down at the kitchen table, asked me what I knew about dinosaurs, and I didn't really know what to say, you know, so I stammered around for about 15, 20 seconds, and he finally shouted at me, "Tell me something about dinosaurs." And I spit out, you know, the first thing that came to mind. I said that they're extinct. And he grabbed me by my shirt and kind of pulled me too close to his face, and he said, "Listen, you will be too in life if you can't learn to adapt and adjust." And obviously he was making a point to me and wanted to be over emphatic about it. But, you know, coaching is all about adjustments and being able to adapt and adjust. And those are some of the tools that you take out into the real world that we talk about, the why, and teaching our players the same thing, the ability to adapt and adjust into situations as they present themselves. And I think the great players and great coaches are able to do that. All right, so just a little food for thought as we get into this thing. What I'm going to do here is I'm going to get into the kickoff return piece. In that piece, okay, I'm going to get into a lot of our communication types of blocks, practice, how we practice drills. I'm not going to get into so much scheme because I'm not going to have time for it. But what I'll do is, like I said, if anybody has questions or wants to talk scheme specifically, they can hit me up via email, and we can talk one-on-one schematically about the schemes. But what I'm showing you is some of the stuff that we are going to that we use on a daily basis in an installation of our kick return. From that, drills, concepts, these are all things that are universal and can be used regardless of the schemes that we use. So again, I'm going to give you some good foundation, I believe, and then from there, if you, like I said, if you want to go further into this, you can certainly hit me up, and we can talk about expanding the information. Okay, so this is just our coaching assignments and how we break it up. I don't care what level you're coaching at. I think it's very important that the guys on your staff are bought in, and it doesn't always happen. I'm not going to paint rainbows and lollipops, man. You got to have guys, at our level, guys are responsible to coach their position. And then a lot of those guys are responsible to help me as we coach the special teams. And so, you've got to get that buy-in, because first and foremost, whether it's the tight end coach, whether it's the DB's coach, their number one responsibility is their position. So you have to understand that going in as a ST coordinator, and you need to be clear and concise in your communication. Your meetings need to be on time and efficient, so that, I'm not infringing on the other coaches, so that they can do their job to their best of their ability. And then in return, I expect if I do that they're going to give me everything they got in those meetings and when we're out on the practice field to make our special teams, one of the best special teams groups in the conference. So let's take a look here. Again, just as our staff is how we break it up. All right. As we get started here and we get into this, if there's a question that you think, hey, can't wait till the end, shoot me a message. And if it pops up, I'll take a look at it and certainly try and address it for you as we go along here. The first thing we talk about are just understanding where we're at from a standpoint of kick return is our philosophy. All right. I think when you start talking statistics and goals, I think that those can be misleading. So I don't want to come on here and say, hey, we were going to set our goal that we're going to have X amount of returns of this amount of yardage, or our goal is to score 2 kick returns on the season. any of that. It's for us, it's plain and simple. Is we've done the numbers, so to speak, and we understand, as do our players. We broke this down and we go through this during camp. Field position and how it matters on the as opposed to I should say as it works with in conjunction with our offense, starting points on the field and what the percentages are for them to have the best ability to score. And so with that being said, we want to create the best field position that gives our offense a chance to score every time, and the numbers obviously, bear out that way. Obviously, the further we can get out, it seems like common sense, but there's some real big indicators there. If we can get the ball to certain points, that the percentages are going to go up drastically for us to have the ability to score, whether that be a field goal or obviously the end goal to try and score touchdowns. All right. So that's what we're talking about with our guys is creating the best field position. Or do we want to score? Absolutely. Do we talk about scoring? Absolutely. But in the end, we want to make sure that our guys understand it's consistency. I think that's one of the biggest misnomers on kickoff return is if you look at the end of the season statistics and you see a guy or a team that has a huge kick return average, the first thing your thought is, oh, they must be pretty good. Well, the reality is if you go out and hit a 90-yard kick return in the first or second game of the season, that's going to keep your average high the entire season. And you may not do anything after that, that is of note, but that one touchdown, has carried you from an average standpoint. So, we like to go in and look at, taking away touchbacks and deciding when we study teams, it's not just the teams that have a long return. It's teams that are consistent with 30 to 40 yard returns, multiple returns over 35 yards. If you have a team that has, multiple touchdowns, then, that's something that will get our attention right away. The consistency is what I'm getting at in the return game. And I think that more than anything really ties into as we all grow as coaches. I think that's one of the things, and I've really started to think about it and look at some of the things that we coach and teach over this time of quarantine. We've had a lot of time to study ourselves and take a look at what it is we do. I think that's the one thing with kick return is that you can find yourself getting too complex. And, it's people that don't understand this special teams and understand this segment in terms of kickoff return. It's not as simple as having a returner get back there and catch the ball and try and hit the wedge and run for a touchdown. There's timing to it, understanding the stem of the return. All right. You may stem a return a certain way before you break it to the desired hole because you want to hold the defense. Obviously the kickoff team, as I refer to it as a defense, but you want to hold, maybe you want to hold the backside. So maybe you stem the ball that gets kicked in the corner to the middle of the field. All of those things take time, and all of those things take practice. And, the more returns that you put into your arsenal, the more you have to practice that. And the reality is, I don't care if you're a team that spends what would be considered by industry standards a heavy amount of special teams time, it's still not enough time. And every special teams coach out there that heard me say that is saying amen right now. So we all want more time. In my opinion, you've got to find a middle ground where you can be efficient and have enough to keep opponents off balance. But in order to do that, you have to be able to encompass all of that into practicing. So with that being said, we talk about from the philosophy standpoint to our big four, okay? Huge about communication. It's something that I'm big about personally. I think that, hey, I'd rather have someone look me in the face and tell me something I don't want to hear, but enough respect to communicate that with me so that I know where they stand, instead of, going about and saying something that creates, misinformation or issues. I'm big on communication. I think that we can solve, almost all of our problems with communication. And so we really talk about that, and we lean on that huge in our special teams meetings out on the field, from coaches to players, players to coaches, Coach Wilcox to myself, and vice versa. From that, communicating, whether that be signals, whether that be, auditory, It all starts up front for us with our center on kick return. He has certain assignments as we kick it off that he has to communicate every single time. All right. From there, just as important probably is the alignment of how we line up. And we may vary that week to week based on the scheme that we're getting from a kickoff standpoint. But our kids need to understand their alignment, where they line up, why they're lining up more importantly, and how it's going to help them. Understanding the path that they must take in order to put themselves in the proper alignment to execute the proper block. And from that alignment, we talk about assignment. Obviously, these guys need to know what they do, or obviously they can't execute it. That goes without saying. That's pretty simplistic. And then we talk about technique, which we're going to get into here and show you over the next 30 or 40 minutes. And let's not fool ourselves, fellas. At the end of the day, we're talking we need a great return man. And that's why I put the slide up of talking about thoroughbreds and donkeys. If you don't have a return man back there that has some juice and understands, has a feel for the returns, understands the timing, understands when to gas it, when to be patient. If you don't have that guy, you can teach all of this other stuff and coach all of this other stuff to the best of your abilities, and you'll be a solid return team. Okay, because you're fundamental and you're disciplined. But if you don't have that guy back there, that's all you're going to be. All right, it's the combination of the great return man and then adding the fundamentals, the communication, the alignments, the assignments, the techniques. That's what makes you a great return team. Because a great return man can do some things that you can't coach. And so you got to find that guy first and foremost. Some standard rules right there that I'm not going to insult your intelligence on, but things that we talk about. The one thing that we don't want to have happen and that we're huge on at Cal is that, we pride ourselves on being smart and tough. We pride ourselves on developing football players, identifying good football players, and then going and recruiting them. So, with that being said, the last thing we want to do is create a penalty. You see the first thing, don't block below the waist. We don't want to have a penalty on the return game. If we don't feel like, hey, there's a reality for a good return, we may just go ahead and take a fair catch and take the ball to 25. We don't want to do that. All right. In reality, we don't. But that is part of the game now. And sometimes we use that into play for us. Okay. As we talk about, just positional receiving zones, guys understanding where they line up on the field, as I mentioned earlier, and then what their job is within that realm in terms of receiving the football. Okay. You look at our centers, guards, and tackles, and you guys obviously can read, but you can back up 5 yards to catch a ball. So those guys on the front line, if they need to back up and handle one, they think they can, they'll do it. If it's a pop-up or some sort of surprise onside that they can get to, we put guys on that front line that we feel have the hands to do that. Now, we have a designated situation of how we line up over the ball that, again, I'll get into if you want to in a more of a one-on-one setting, but how we offset it. We have two guys always set up and prepared for a surprise kick. One guy's always going to be set to field it. The other guy's going to be set to protect him. And I can explain that in a little bit more detail, again, in a one-on-one situation. Talking about our ends and fullbacks, they're going to fair catch any pop-up, kick between them and the front line. One thing we talk about all the time with those guys is that they never to back up on fielding a ball. We never want them to back up to field a kick. All right. That's on the returners in the back to communicate and keep those guys away from the football. If it's in front of them, they need to move to catch it. Well, so be it. Again, if it's the ball does hit the ground, we want them just to fall on it. We don't want them to try and pick it up and take off with the return. Hey, just fall on the ball. We'll live to fight another day. And these are all things that have to be drilled and have to be talked about. I know it seems foolish to think about, hey, a muffed catch, practicing muffing a ball, but it's not so much in practicing a muffed kick as it is, hey, you couldn't get to this ball and all of a sudden it's laying on the ground. We want you to fall on that football. Okay. And, I guess that's probably as good as time as any to talk to you a little bit about, some of the education that we talk about with our players. For us, one of the first things we do is a couple of times over the course of fall camp, we have a meeting with our players where we talk about ST 101. And then every Thursday, ST 101 comes into play, where we're talking about different scenarios that other teams may have created, or we have created, or rules within the game. We're trying to educate our players about rules of the game. And so when we got to Cal, Coach Wilcox had this in his arsenal. We expanded it into the ST room. And one of the things that we talked about is it seems like every year when you're on kickoff return, you have a ball that gets kicked and dies somewhere near the sideline. Okay. A lot of times it ends up somewhere around the 5, the 4, the 3-yard line, and it's dead right there. And it's a tough ball to pick up and take off. The timing is disrupted on your kickoff return. Well, obviously we'd studied the rule that, if we establish ourselves out of bounds with our foot and then we touch the ball, it also establishes the ball as a kick out of bounds. And so what does that do for us? Well, that automatically establishes, as I mentioned, the ball as a kick out of bounds, and we get the ball at the 35-yard line. So we find ourselves in a situation where that happens. We wanted to educate our kids on this situation. And again, it ties into the ends and fullbacks and even the returners, muffed kicks that end up by the sideline. Well, we found tape on this from the NFL, and we showed our kids of a player executing it and getting the ball at the 35-yard line. Well, we did this for 2 years. We periodically would touch on this. And, lo and behold, when we played in the Chiefs Bowl in Phoenix, the opening kickoff, which most people don't pay attention to, when they're at home watching the game on TV, it's time for a bathroom break or a drink break when special teams comes on. But the opening kick, what does it do? It kicks off and it dies about the 4 or 5-yard line. And obviously our returner is smart enough, and he recognizes the situation, puts his foot out of bounds, touches the ball, and we get the ball, kick out of bounds. We get the ball at the 35. So we're starting opening field position at the 35-yard line. Pretty doggone good field position. But what was unique and pretty interesting, and as a special teams coordinator, you take pride in, is you watch our guys. TCU didn't really know what was going on at the time, and you watched our guys celebrating because it was something that we'd worked on for 2 years periodically, as I mentioned. It's something that you can apply to your guys. The smarter they are, the ability that you have to be successful, and you can teach those little things. Not to get off on a tangent there, but I thought that's a good time to mention that. And again, if you want more information on that video, I can show you that later. Okay. As we get into off returner, again, and this goes for our front line, watching the approach of the kicker, understanding where the ball is going to be placed. Okay. He understands his alignment from an off returner standpoint, and what he has to do on his assignment as the off returner. All right. In all reality, we do not want the off returner to catch the football. We've gone back and forth with putting a bigger body back there. You see some teams put even, tight ends, O-linemen, big backs back there, and let the single returner catch it. And all that guy has become now is an extra blocking back. We haven't gone quite to that extent yet, but we've toyed around with the idea. But I do believe there's still merit in having a guy back there that can return it if the situation calls for it. But we do like a bigger body back there that can help you in the blocking game as well, and if need be, bail you out with the return. Okay. And then our return man will make all the calls. He will determine if he can catch it with a Mimi call, or a UU call to the off returner, or possibly to one of those tight ends or fullbacks who may have to catch it. So some pretty simple stuff there in terms of, zones and positions, but these are things that we work, periodically, and make sure that guys understand them and are aware when by the time we go into our first game of exactly what their responsibilities are and their zones are, if they are to get any kind of pop-ups, sky kicks, deep squibs, anything of that nature. We've gone back and forth on different ways on how we count it, okay, but I've since settled in that when we're talking about whatever we're talking about, and guys that have really done this will understand this next statement. When I have a QC come work for me, a quality control, a GA, whoever works with me, I tell them as the season goes on, it's going to get hairy. The hours are going to get long. You're going to find yourself in a unique situation that you wouldn't find on offense and defense per se. Okay. I believe great offensive coaches need to understand defense and vice versa. but it's, special teams is the only situation where you coach punt and then you coach the counter to that, which is punt block or punt return, however you refer to it. So there's times, believe it or not, that you get into this and you're talking about punt and you're trying to explain stuff and it can get hairy. Is he talking about punt or is he talking about punt return? And you might be saying to yourself right now, what the hell is Coach Ragle talking about? Trust me, it happens. And every guy that I said it to at first probably is thinking what you're thinking right now, unless you've done it. And then you realize, man, like, I see what you're saying. So for us, I say that to explain to you guys, listen, whenever we're talking about whatever unit we're talking about, in this case, kickoff return, it's how we see it as a kickoff return unit. So when we're talking about the scout team, the opposing team, it's from our view. So if we're on kickoff, it's the same thing. We're talking about the scout kickoff return. It's from our view as the kickoff team. So in this case, kickoff return, it's from our view. And so as we talk about how we would count the kickoff team at Cal, the guy as we see it to our right is going to be R1, R2, R3, R4, R5 as we go down the line. As we look to our left as the kickoff return team, L1 through 5, you can see it right there. Example 2, obviously if that L5 moves across and gives us a 6x4 look, then the count remains the same. We still call it the L5. He's just pushed over to our right. But that's how we're going to count it. And every time that we're in any phase at Cal on special teams, we're going to talk about it in regards to whatever phase we're in at that particular time. Okay. I think this is, aside from the communication, understanding your leverage is paramount in order to set up a good return. I mean, it's a lot of kickoff return, in my opinion, is executing your block, but there's times that you can just cover a guy up body on body, and it's enough if you're able to get the proper leverage point. And a lot of times guys get beat, majority of times I should say, guys get beat because they don't take the proper leverage. And, one of the drills that we do all the time is just understanding, okay, seeing the ball kick. We have a key saying, it's ball, me, man. Ball, me, man. All right. Where's the ball at? Okay. Where's my return man? And, okay, I've got to put myself in between the guy that's on kickoff and my return man, and I've got to get to a point where I cover him up and execute a block, okay? So I've got to understand, the best football players, okay, is you see it all the time. You watch guys that go on from, nobodies as they start their careers and are great special teams players. They evolve into great offense and defensive players. Great special teams players, and I'm not talking return guys. I'm talking about the grunt guys that do a lot of the grunt work. The guys that are really good at it have great spatial awareness. The ability to play in space, in my opinion, is one of the number one tools that you need to be a great football player, regardless of position. And you really see that spatial awareness come into play when you're talking about kickoff return. Understanding I've got to get from point A to point B and intersect my guy, knowing the path that he's going to take to maintain the proper leverage that validates the return. And so we talk about it, we drill it, and it's to a point where the kids see it and understand, oh man, my departure was poor, coach, and therefore it caused me to put myself a half a man shaded to the left, what I should have been a half a man shaded to the right. So this is something that we drill and we talk about ad nauseum. And again, do I have leverage? We talk about that all the time. Okay, if I have leverage, meaning I'm lined up in the direction of where the return's going and I have leverage on my man, what is the departure angle that I need to take to maintain that leverage? And then on the flip side of that, if I do not have leverage, okay, I've got to go get leverage. I'm going to have to probably work a little bit harder, maybe take a flatter angle, or I'm going to have to run a little bit faster to get myself in position to cut that guy off, to go get the leverage to be able to execute the return. All things that we drill and we talk about so that guys understand the leverage is paramount in setting up the returns. Okay, some of the things that we talk about on the kickoff return, the front six sequence we think is extremely important to us. Understanding, how the ball is kicked and what you need to see before the ball is kicked and as it's kicked and how you respond accordingly. Okay. And we talk about, again, first and foremost, as I talked to you about, we have within our system a couple of guys that are set up to defend any kind of surprise kick and protect each other at the same time. So with that being said, we go from there to seeing the ball kicked, all right? We're telling our guys that we work this, we train this, we preach this. You are not departing until you see that ball kicked for real. There's no need to go. You know, we have to emphasize this and overemphasize this many times and drill it. We work on surprise kicks on them when they don't expect it, because we want them to understand that we have no return if we get, for a lack of a better word, you know, void of the football with an onside kick or a surprise kick and we give it up. Okay, so we've got to see the ball kicked. As we see the ball kicked, we talk about clearing our cleats, and it's just from our initial starting point, clearing that initial cleat space by slowly inching our way out of there. So we're moving before he kicks it ever so slightly. We're just trying to gain ground just a little by little. But again, when we're not talking feet, we're not talking yards, we're talking inches. You know, we talk about football being a game of inches, trying to just gain any advantage we can. But if that surprise kick comes, having the ability to stick our foot in the ground and be able to execute our responsibility on the surprise kick. Once the ball is kicked, though, this is where understanding the leverage and executing the leverage comes into play, okay? We got to flash our eyes, find the return man, okay? And then we've got to depart on the angle necessary to execute the return, all right? Now, I know this is sprint to the top of the contact zone. That's in parentheses, the 30s. That's clinic talk for you guys, all right? That's BS. It's not always the 30. Sometimes it is. It varies by position on the field and the return that we're running, so understand that. And then once we take off and counter the leverage that we need to execute the block, we're going to put ourselves in a football playing position to block our man, and then we're going to have active feet working on reeling in our opponent. We should be there before him and set up in good position to strike and execute our block. Again, you see, draw a line between your man and the ball. That's probably already happened by the departure of your leverage. Okay, sometimes if you take a poor angle, you may have to adjust, but that should be something that happens prior to you getting there and setting up. And then obviously we're going to straddle the ball, separate ourselves, ball me man, and execute the return. Okay. You know, we try and keep this pared down when we give it to our guys exactly what we want. We try and pare the language down so it's key things that we're focusing on and we execute. You know, 3 tools that we talk about and we work on to be successful in the kick return game are the fit and finish, fit and rip, and back block, okay? And as I talk to you about that, you guys, like I said, obviously can read it, but the fit and finish, you know, is a situation where we secured a block with return side leverage, all right? Lock out the return, sidearm, and run your feet to keep the high shoulder. So in other words, if we're bringing a return to our right, okay, the return team's right, we want to secure that high shoulder, which we would secure with my right hand. Okay, obviously a little bit difficult to demo over a Zoom, but I'm going to show you some drill work here where we're punching into the breastplates of the opponent, and once we've drawn contact and created contact and a fit with our hands on our opponent, we're going to lock out with our right hand if the return is going to our right, which would be the high side shoulder of the kickoff team, and finish the block there. A fit and rip would be a situation where we're losing that block to the return side. So in other words, we're losing it to our right side. So in other words, he's starting to cross my face. I can't get the high shoulder locked out and executed. I'm losing him. So then we'll punch hard to the chin of the opponent through him, punch hard, rip through him, and almost just like a standard rip by, like a defensive end dropping his shoulder, ripping through. We're going to rip through that opponent and get our body between him and the man. And again, you heard me say the statement, ball me man. We talk about that all the time. Your job at the end of the day is stay between ball me man. Stay between the defender and the return man. And so we're going to rip through if we're losing that guy. So we talk about and work that drill a ton. And then the last one, if we were to feel the defender was escaping away from us from the return side, we would box him out. All right. So defender is escaping away from the return side. So he's trying to backdoor us. Okay. So we feel like all of a sudden maybe we've locked with him now. We're losing him to the backside. We're just going to spin and pivot. And again, we're putting our body on him. Last ditch effort. We feel like we're losing him. He's trying to backdoor us. We can body him up like we're boxing him out for a rebound. And again, staying between him and the return man. So these are 3 tools that we work a lot on to execute. And understand this, fellas, these are finishing pieces of a block. These are the finishing tools that we work on to finish the block. Okay, excuse me. Strike and finish here is what we talk about all the time. You know, this is what makes kickoff return extremely hard in my opinion, is that you're going to run down, get yourself in a position to get set up, and you're going to have a guy coming full speed or 3/4 speed, coming at a fast rate of speed regardless, and you're going to take a blow. And we talk about being in position to sustain that blow, all right? It's not so much that we're going to create a violent strike. There's going to be a violent strike created by the contact. In order to absorb that, we have to have great body position. Active hands and feet are paramount. If you just sit there and you don't have your feet active and your hands ready to go, you're probably going to get dropped. Poor body position. You're going to get beat, okay? And then we talk about working for proper leverage and keeping the high shoulder, things that we just talked about with you guys just a moment ago. Really, we talk to our guys about single blocks, front side singles, backside singles, and circle blocks, all right? I'm not going to get into full detail on all of them because of the time constraints, but let's talk about a front side single and backside single. And I mentioned it briefly, all right? Obviously, a front side single block is one that's created on the front side of the return side. A backside single is one that occurs on the backside of the return, all right? So each approach is different in terms of, again, understanding our leverage and how we get to that. But you would think this is something that's pretty simple in explanation, but when you're teaching it to your kids, you'd be surprised how many times they think, oh man, I thought I was on the front side of the block, didn't realize that I'm on the back side. And how much, okay, now understanding, hey, I'm on the back side of this, I've got a backside single. I understand now my approach has to be different. And when I leave my initial departure so that I can execute this backside single. So understanding and identifying, hey, whether I'm a front side single or I'm a backside single, we're going to have a front side double. Understanding the type of blocks that come with the return and what they're expected to execute are paramount. With that, of course, comes double teams, all right? We talk about identifying double teams as post and pin players. I think that if you study, which I have a ton, I've really studied a lot with double teams. I think the really good double teams are ones that truly have a defined post and defined pin player, whatever you want to call it, cage player, post and cage, whatever you want it, however you refer to it. We refer to it as post and pin, but understanding that, in my opinion, the best teams have a defined post and pin man. Obviously, with the rule changes a little bit, it's a little bit more difficult at getting to this as it has been, a couple of years ago. But again, this is paramount, in my opinion, to being a great double team. All right. This is some of the things that we work on here at Cal, understanding that this used to be a double team, and then we would bring, as you look at the left tackle here on the drawing, right there that I just marked, we used to have that as a double snipe where we were going to snipe that guy. In this case, we would be, kind of hiding behind the double team of the L3 and then sniping L4, creating a cavity where we would try and move that L3, snipe that L4, and create a nice alleyway to run through. We still have this in our arsenal. We use this quite a bit. It now, because of the rule changes, a defenseless player, we have changed it screen and chip. All right, so we have to fit that guy, body him up a little bit more than we would in years past where we could kind of clean his clock. But this is something of a type of block that we like to execute as well. All right, last thing here before I get into some film and show you some drills. wedge sequence has changed. Now we talk about where we have to execute for rule purposes, the single file wedge, which we started working on several years. So, and really, I got to say, a lot of this stuff, as I've grown and developed, we spent a lot of time with Coach Chodip at Montana State. If you guys ever get a chance to spend some time with him, he was kind of at the forefront, in my opinion, of getting into the single file wedge and a lot of this information that we've kind of stolen from him and shaped into our own form and value at Cal, we took for him. But he was really big on teaching me and educating me, especially about with the single file wedge and the timing that has to account for it in order for you to execute on the back end. You can execute and be great up front on your singles, front side singles, backside singles, doubles, whatever you choose to do schematically. But if you don't execute and have your timing right with your wedge, it's all for naught. And so the wedge sequence is paramount. You guys can read right there in terms of what we ask our guys to do. Some of this stuff is a little bit generic. Again, it's all pertinent on you establishing what is key for you as it pertains to the return that you're giving. This is some food for thought for you. The yardage and how you align may differ. And it's just like, if you're talking offense and you're talking about certain run plays, well, the footwork of the back is going to change, on certain plays and the timing, getting that stuff right. You have to go out and work on that and experiment with that a little bit. So, that's no different here in the return game, talking about the stem of the returner and understanding how you set that single file wedge up is critical for you to be successful in the return game. Okay. With that being said, I'm gonna get you here to some drills. As again, we could do this for several hours and really get into it. We don't have that kind of time, so I'm gonna get you into some drills and some scenarios that we work on here at Cal in order to help us in the return game. All right, this is front side and back side singles. Hopefully you guys can see this. All right, so the guys here are obviously that I'm marking yellow are our kickoff return guys. They are working a front side single, so they have leverage. So you're going to see them drop and maintain their leverage here. Okay, base, good base, snap the hands, work. Bring that back here, hold on. Okay. If you really focus on this one right here, you will see him work the front side high shoulder and lock that thing out front side as the return would be going to their right here. Just understanding, again, we're not trying to kill their legs. We want these guys to get set up, work it, and just understanding the concept of what we're trying to get executed here. Okay, you see the strike. He's in good body position. Hands, active feet. Now he's going to work that shoulder, high shoulder, and lock it out. Okay. This one right here, it'd be an example of backside. I don't have leverage, so I've got to go get it. This is a good example right here of the young man that I've marked. Okay, again, saving their legs. All right, now return is coming to the left. All right, now you're going to see him. Good body position, active feet, work it out, boom, finish it. Okay, give you a better look from the end zone here. Okay, you can see the guy that's circled there. We're working here against UW. This is more of a front side. Okay, we're working a scheme here where you can see them right here. They're coming together to double, okay? This is the guy that we're focused on right here. All right, the guy that he's going to block is about a 6'3", 265-pound beast running down on kickoff. So you're going to see the initial shock, boom, all right? But good pad level active feet. Now they kick it poor and it ends up spitting out the back. But this isn't clinic, this is real, all right? This isn't, you know, oh, cutesy, I'm in good position. He gets his ass rocked here, but because he's in good position, he's got good body position to maintain the front side block as we were bringing it back this way, okay? He's able to sustain the block and stay on it. And that's all you need right there. That's a real nice job against a big guy. He's out man by about 60 pounds right there. That's a hell of a job and a hell of a block on a front side single. Okay, here's another one. I believe this is a backside single. Real nice job, okay? Real nice job here. And again, you know, these aren't all, you know, 50, 60-yard returns, but you see this guy now. I mean, hey, understanding, being patient, knowing I've got to work to an angle to put myself, I've got to go get the leverage. This is a real nice job, and it's not a killer block, but it's enough to ride him by and execute in the scheme. That's a real nice job right there. All right, we'll take a look at some doubles here. Should have been marked. I apologize. All right, but we're going to look at a double right here. Okay. Again, understanding, setting up. All right. Posting it, pinning it. Okay, so we're going to wash this thing in a perfect world, looking to get the return somewhere back here. Doesn't always work out that way. We got good movement on that double, all right? And there's a nice hole there you can see that is void. If we'd have got some clear out here, we'd have had a chance, apologize, we'd have had a chance to make that thing go. Again, but understanding, I don't think you can be a good double team unless you guys understand who is doing what, a true post and pin player. We're going to come back to this clip because it's a nice clip on the back end with the wedge that could have had a chance for a big time score. All right, this is from this past season. We actually go a double here with two double teams. Again, posting and pinning, posting and pinning, trying to create the movement this way. A lot of space there. All right, this should have been a touchdown. All right, I don't want to get on a soapbox or get off course here, but these are the little things that you have to be drilled down. All right, so we had a situation where our starting left tackle was out. We have a true freshman here who's playing the left tackle. He's going to execute his block, but he needed to stay on the high side of the kicker. Now you watch this guy, the kicker's going to fall off of the high side and end up making the tackle and prevented us from running this back for a touchdown. You see that block? That's him right there. He's making the block, but the kicker stays on the high side or the return side. He's going to fall off. But if you look at this picture right now, this thing is out the gate. There's the kicker, trips him up. So, again, the little things, man, the little thing. All right, lastly, before I run out of time, I want to get the single file wedge in, take a look, and then I'll answer any questions and talk about contact info. This is just some stuff we do from a timing standpoint, okay, with the single file wedge. Understanding, hey, okay, off returner, fullback, you know, right end, left end, understanding the timing of it, in particular for a certain return, how that has to marry up, fit, boom. And again, that's practice and it looks pretty clean. We do some live stuff in short area, It makes it more challenging, and these guys have to execute it. But we close the proximity on when we do that drill a little bit faster, a little bit with more veracity. Again, this is the same clip you guys saw earlier, I believe. We'll look at the back end now. Okay, and again, ball gets kicked about where we want it. We thought it might get kicked just a little bit more over towards the hash, so we're a little bit off of the original stem that we had anticipated. All right, the fits are good right here. Okay, what happens is we have this thing cleanly blocked. As you can see, we have two good fits. Their body placement is good to secure. We have the lane secured. We missed the block right here, fellas, and it causes our off return man to be right there. We anticipated this guy as the fit. Off return man, if everything is clean, should block this guy, and then you get, you know, a coach's dream on kick return, your return man against their kicker. But we had a guy fall up, as I mentioned, right here, which inevitably screwed the thing up. He has to make that block, and then the fit guy fits in and makes the tackle. Little things, you know, and as you preach this, you're talking to your guys. One guy, it's one guy that misses that block right there. But it's a pretty good single file wedge and how they fit that up. Right, a couple of quick additional drills that we use to help us identify guys and help us work and get better. Just some short area drills, no hand sets. Again, understanding leverage, okay? Knowing, hey, I'm kick side, all right? Understanding concept of ball me man. Return is going to go to our left here. Return man is just putting himself in between. Putting himself in between the opposition and the returner. No hand set. It's understanding, hey, getting my body in position, proper body awareness, again, spatial awareness. Shoot jobs, understanding, hey, we want to work to an angle with good pad level, all right? Get there, get there, get there. Good pad level work, active feet. Guys' hands could have been tighter there on that particular drill, okay? That's something that we work a lot. And then the last couple that I'll show you here quickly is, before I get into this, we talk about in the spring, we really get this going where we have some competition. We get into Olympics, Paralympics, we draft teams, we keep score. So part of our special teams practices over the course of 15 practices in the spring is all of a sudden we call it competition. Boom, we call up certain players, we set the matchups off the teams that they drafted. Winning teams get points. We tabulate the points through the course of the spring. The winning team, we gear them up and we take care of them at the end with some swag and you know, the guys get into it, but at the same time, it's competitive and they're working drills that apply to special teams. Here is one, okay? We have a strike zone and a fly zone. You can see, all right, boom, 5 yards. There's going to be, okay, this is a strike zone, all right? So we're saying here that, hey, 5 yards separation. You're going to get to, there's cones down there. You're going to get to the square. He can't run around him. He has to strike him. Keep his head out of the strike. But we want him to feel that strike from a return standpoint, from a kickoff return standpoint, and deal with it. All right? It's a pretty good job. It's a pretty good job of staying active. Now, from the standpoint, you're going to see it again from this angle, but from the standpoint, this is a dual servicing drill. The kickoff, man, has the ability to work and strike with his hands and shed. We don't want him to run around, but what we call a bully technique, that's what he should be doing from a kickoff standpoint. So this is a good dual service drill. All right, we're closing the proximity because we want it. We want it. Boom, we want him to be ready. All right, we want tighter elbows here. His hands are wide. He's a little bit on the front of his toes where he'd like to see his hands, his feet a little bit more underneath him. His hips sunk a little bit, but he does a pretty good job against the bigger guy in maintaining that and letting the returner go by. All right, fly zone, last one here. Okay, now, all right, very similar situation. I'll let it run and I'll talk through it. But the kickoff guy, as you see, has the ability to beat and restack. You're going to see it from the return or from the end zone now. All right. We're talking to our kickoff return guy about, hey, now it's taken, you can take this guy one way. Your job is to knock this guy out of the square. All right. We don't want to strike. We want you to knock this guy out of the square on an angle. Okay, whatever it takes, we want you to knock him out of that square. From the kickoff standpoint, you have the ability to have a two-way go to avoid the return man if possible, restack him, and then obviously we'd fit up on a returner. Boom, gives him a nice wiggle. Kickoff return man, bad body position, leans and gets beat. All right, another drill that we would score for competition standpoint. You can see it one more time. He's on his toes, leans and misses it. Again, point would go to the kickoff man right there, okay? Okay, I know we're at about 11:57, all right? Let me say this to you guys, and I'll go through and take as much time as we've got to answer some questions. I want to give you my email one more time here so that if you guys have questions about it, on anything, you can email me, and we can definitely talk offline.
Yeah, we're good for time, Coach. Whatever,
Okay.
We're fine. We're in good shape.
Let me just, this is some kickoff stuff, but I just want to. All right, there's my email for you guys that if you need that, there it is. You know, shoot me an email with any kind of questions, and I will certainly get back to you. All right. When you talk about you know, again, like I said, this could be, I mean, I know it's a 50-minute presentation and then answering questions. We could talk for hours about schemes and schemes to me, like, oh, he's not showing us any schemes. Okay, well, yeah, I'm not. They're not magical secrets. It's not that it's the issue of, you know, what is your personnel? To me, it's all relative to the scheme you create that has to be tied in with the personnel that you have. And so it's not about the scheme as much as it is about the personnel you have, and then the ability to execute the blocks within that scheme to make you successful. So, and I can talk, I have no problem with guys wanting to hit me up and doing a Zoom, as, you know, during this time, quarantine time, as long as I've got time, I'm willing to help and do what I can to help anybody that wants it. But yeah, I'll take any questions, Jim, that we've got now. Whatever we need to do, answer any kind of questions that guys may have.
Okay, I see one, Coach, question here, Coach. It says, as a former high school coach, what's your recommendations on time allocations for special teams?
Well, first of all, I'll never be a former high school coach, man. I'm always a high school coach, man. That's where it started. And, you know, I think some of the high school coaches are the best coaches there are because of so many things that they have to deal with. So understand that. I got lucky and got some breaks to continue to coach at the college level. But, man, high school football is what it's all about. And I'm just grateful to be on here talking with a lot of you guys. I think I don't care what the level is of football to answer the question specifically. You know, I think you have to, if you want maximum results in your special teams, you've got to put the time in. Okay. I say this all the time. If I was to go back and we did, when I was at Chaparral, we put a lot of time in it and we emphasized it. We won some games because of it. We lost a game because of it as well. And it was, you know, but to answer your question specifically, I think that you can win games at the high school level because, to be very candid with you, I think guys don't put enough emphasis in it. And I still think that at the college game to a degree. I think it's a little more at the high school level. But I think you need to have meeting time, okay, every day, just like if you have an offense and a defensive meeting, whatever the structure that you're working within your program, I believe you have to have, you're not going to have equal amount of time as offense and defense. You know, when you break down the numbers, and I know I'm giving you a long-winded answer here, and I apologize, but, you know, it's about a third of the game. People say that, but it's really about 20 to 25% of the game special teams is. That's the reality of it, between 20 and 25%. So I think your time spent on special teams has to equate to that. Total numbers of hours you spend practicing for a game. You know, I think if it's 10 hours, you got to spend, you know, 25% of those 10 hours on special teams. So however it breaks down for you, you need to have ample time. I don't think there's a magic number saying, hey, you need 15 minutes every day. But, you know, whatever the practice schedule, because guys' practice schedule is different, you know, what you do Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday. But I think you need to have, you know, 15 to 20 minutes in each of your main practices for special teams at a minimum, plus some sort of walkthrough and some sort of meeting time in order for you to be an efficient special teams coach and special teams team.
Perfect. How about another one here, Coach? What kind of players I'm assuming he's talking about your KOR scheme that you talked about. What kind of players are you looking for that front line players?
That's a great question, and those are tough guys to find. You know, I think that you know, when you start, let's start inside with the center and the guards. You know, reality is that you probably need a little bit of a thicker body that can bear some weight, because you might have a little bit of a blocking opponent is probably could possibly be a bigger body. So, you know, you're looking for some guys that, one, you need guys that can run, okay, first and foremost. But inside, you know, if you've got bigger safety body types, linebackers that have a little weight to them that can run, those guys, athletic tight ends could work on the front line. But I'd like to look at bigger linebackers that can run, bigger safeties that can run, bigger running backs would all be good guys that could fit in that interior. As you branch out to the tackles, the front line, your right and left tackles are longer DBs, receivers that are willing to block, that can run, are prime candidates for your outside players, your tackles. That left tackle is you know, it's got to be pretty special. You're looking for a longer guy that has to come from the backside a lot. You know, he's got to be a special guy that has some length and speed, because he's got a lot of times he's chasing the angle. And so you're looking for a longer athlete that can run on that backside tackle.
Fantastic, Coach. Hey, we appreciate you. Guys, I think you shared out your contact information, which we appreciate that. Really good topic, really good stuff. You know, again, we appreciate your time. I know everybody's busy and got stuff going on, and we appreciate you coming on and talking some ball. You've always been gracious to do that for us here in Arizona, especially. I know you guys recruit the heck out of Arizona specifically. I know you guys do a really, really good job here. There's guys from all over the country on this line. And, you know, if you've ever been on Cal Berkeley's campus, I mean, it's incredible. It's a fantastic spot. So appreciate you, Coach Ragle. Thanks for coming on.
Yeah, listen, I appreciate you having me. I appreciate what you're doing, Jim, with the coaching network and you know, trying to get this thing up and running. And you know, my heart is in Arizona, has been. I started my career there. You know, we recruited heavily. It's not a secondary, as I heard the UCLA Bruins. It is my primary spot, and it is near and dear to my heart. You know, the state of Arizona high school football is something very special to me and always will be. The people of Arizona are special as well. And you know, but coaching, you know, the one thing that you see, and I've really seen over the course of this, you know, coronavirus and the time that we've been in our homes, is how special coaching really is. And it really boils down, and people that know me hear me talk about this all the time, is life's about people. It really is. And coaching is about people and educating your kids. But, you know, as long as I have time, I'm readily available anytime to help high school coaches out. Anybody that needs it is looking for whether it be advice or scheme or whatever I can do to booster a young man's start in the coaching game, or help them get better at a specific scheme. Whatever I can do on my end to help them, I'm all for it. And like I said, Arizona's a passion and it's home for me. And Arizona high school football is something special. And you know, with Coach Wilcox here at Cal, it's a priority for us to continue to recruit the state of Arizona. And if you guys are ever out this way and want to come spend some time with us, we'd love to have you. Appreciate you having me, Jim. Go Bears, and we'll talk again soon.
All right. Thanks, Coach. Appreciate your time. Great job. Thank you.